Welcome to the PM Hive Podcast. I don't remember. I think this is episode 12 or 13. I have to double check. I think it's episode 13. But welcome to episode 13. I got another special guest. This is Kasey again. I'm your co-host. And I'd like to take it over to Swapnil, who is our special guest today. We're going to be talking through Swapnil's experience, what he loves about PM, and his experience in the gaming industry, which is a super fascinating industry. I don't think I've had a guest in the gaming space too much outside of Gabe. So I do want to explore that space a little bit more, but before we get in there, obviously the PM fundamental conversation first. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Feel free to give your introduction.
Yeah, first thing I would say is in an introduction, my dad's a dentist. So the first thing I notice in somebody is their teeth.
Oh, no, okay. No, sorry.
Anyway, hi, Kasey. I mean, obviously we've been chatting offline about things. I've been a product manager for about 13 years now. I have been in the gaming industry for that long as well. I was a QA engineer before that. So I have a master's in computer science. I did some engineering work. Then I went into QA, automation, manual, everything, how I first moved into PM was I was doing a regular QA role. And then, when it's a smaller company, usually you don't have a formal product management department. Somebody just kind of does the role of talking to the customer.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be one of those guys who was doing the role of talking to the customer. And then when the organization grew a little bit, I was tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, why don't you do this full time? We'll hire somebody else to do the other role. And then that's how I fell into it by accident. And then, started obviously learning more than just talking to the customer.
Wow. You know what I'm realizing throughout this pod right now, as we're going through this live, is that I actually don't think I know too much about your background, which is actually good for me because I'm coming in with a very genuine interest to get to know you a little bit more throughout this episode. And the first question that came to my head while you introduced yourself was, how did you get yourself into QA first?
So I think I got an internship right out of school. And that was kind of the first role. I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I originally from India. I went to school in the US. And so there's like this limited period where you have to find a job which will sponsor you. Otherwise, you have to leave the country. And so I wouldn't say it was a compromise, but it was a compromise in the sense that I didn't look too far, cast my net too far, too wide. It was a convenient enough option for me I did an internship there, and then they offered me a full-time role, and I kind of took it, and I started liking it. One other thing I wanted to mention is like I'm a slightly older than you. When I was graduating from school, there was only two software companies, Microsoft and Google, right? So and especially growing up in India as well, you don't really get exposed to working when you are studying. You go to school and you go to school and you go to school, and when you're done with school, you usually work. That's just how we are brought up in India. And also, being a decent enough student, I always thought, well, if I'm a software engineer, I have to work for Microsoft and Google because that's software. Those are the only software companies at the time. When I got this internship, it was actually in a law enforcement company. So we made software for law enforcement. So like the cops who drive around in the cars, they use our software. I was really fascinated by this, and when I was offered a full-time role, it happened to be a QA role, but I just took it, and that's how I got into QA.
Oh, wow. That's a very interesting story. I've noticed, obviously, you definitely have a number of years on me in terms of age. So I actually wanted to ask you because of that, do you feel like now that you're working in the tech industry in the mid-2020s, right? Compared to when you first graduated, what was the economy like back then compared to now?
I think every generation, if you can call it that, has their kind of, next big thing. So when I started off, web was your main main platform that you developed for, and then mobile was the new thing. Now it is mobile, obviously is inherent. Everybody uses a mobile device by default, and then AI is the new thing. So every kind of generation or every phase, there's this thing something is default and there's this disruption thing coming out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of, tech industry wise. Economy has cycles. I never kind of paid attention to economy as, like a money thing. I was always interested in the tech industry. So I definitely did pay attention to that. So I feel I see it in terms of web, mobile, AI more than economy, meaning, how people are making money and how the price of, goods and homes are going up and down.
Right. You're kind of just living in the moment, right?
Yeah.
That's a fair way to describe it. I have a few fun questions. Before I get to those fun questions, though, I kind of want to play in my mind real quick about like, as we go through the years over the last 2 decades, it feels like, to your point, what you mentioned before, is there seems to be a sort of technological boom or like generation of new technological advancements. Like we have the dot-com bubble. After the dot-com bubble, we had really Web 2.0, like the internet really blooming up. And then we had mobile devices. The first iPhone came out, I think, 2007. Steve Jobs, like did his first, obviously, like introduction to it. And then we came into the age of mobile. Every company had a mobile app, or there's a lot of mobile-based and native-only companies there. Then we went into the age of the cloud, where we stopped putting stuff into hard drives and flash sticks, and we started moving our items to someone else's server and computer and whatnot. And now we're into the age of, after the cloud, we went into the age of ML and AI, right? First, machine learning a lot. I know that for sure. And then as machine learning continues to grow in a lot of different multimodals, like you have computer vision, you have text-based and all that stuff. And then we came to the age of LLMs, starting with GPTs. And then from GPTs, now we have every large big tech company operating their own LLM and monetizing on it and all that stuff. So anyways, do you feel like that's a good way to kind of like describe the last like 2 decades?
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting for sure. I had a quick question. So based on kind of like the last 2 decades or so, right? Do you find that like the companies that we're like kind of working for right now as PMs, as well as just like in general, they're heavily are they keeping up with the trends of like the technological advancements?
I think there's a wide range. Definitely, there are some companies which are conservative. And even like in denial of AI a little bit. I think some companies have a reason as well. You can't trust. I mean, you can't have hallucinations when you're working for a healthcare company or a public sector company dealing with people's money and things like that. But there are ways to get around that. Obviously, if you understand the technology enough and put like a detailed prompt where you say do not hallucinate, then there won't be hallucinations. But in general, public acceptance, it's leadership obviously has a say in it, but also employees also have a say in it. It's that general acceptance of, is this here to take our jobs away, or is this here to... So for any company, if you can make money or if you can save money, then they'll adopt the technology.
That's true.
So if that's kind of like as long as leadership accepts that or understand that, and if the employees are fairly accepting, I would say public sector and those kinds of, there maybe they have a lot more say, like employees have a lot more say on the direction of where the companies go. But otherwise, I think, if you can prove that you can safely make more money or save money, then they're going to adopt the technology.
I want to also add, definitely another big influence is the shareholders.
Yeah,
board of directors.
Yeah.
Like I've had situations where I've heard stories where like if this enterprise, this traditionally in memory or on premise or just starting to adopt the cloud enterprise B2B SaaS is not to adopt AI, shareholders are absolutely going to oust the CEO for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's his job is on the line.
Yeah, job's on the line. You work in gaming.
Yeah.
How long have you been in gaming for?
About 12 years plus.
So far, with your experience in gaming, and then did you work in any industries before gaming?
I've worked in semiconductor and healthcare before. So law enforcement, semiconductor, healthcare, and then gaming. In Canada, only gaming. Before that, I was in the US.
Do you have any kind of like way to describe the differences between like moving into the gaming space and then like the prior industries you were in before?
Yeah, I think domain knowledge is important in any industry you are in. Gaming is slightly more niche, I would say. There is a little bit of a...
Maybe gatekept a little bit?
I think because there might be, again, public perception about it. There's like a gambling component to it a little bit. So, there are some... I mean, I have done interviews as a hiring manager where I've asked somebody and they did really well in the interview, and like 3/4 of the way to the interviews, I would describe to them what the industries, and they would say, oh, I don't want to be associated with this kind of industry. And I was like, wow. You didn't know this before you came here and things like that. So, people have that kind of a perception. And this is when you're applying for jobs, so forget, common people. So I think there's a little bit of that, but not, I would say from and obviously I bring my background. I'm from India. So, that influence, like your upbringing has a little bit of influence. I don't see that as much maybe in North America. People are raised in North America. And obviously now in the US, it has proliferated. They are in your face about the ads and things like that.
Yeah.
So, people were, like now that just like mobile device is like a natural part of people's lives, gaming is a natural part of people's life because you see sports stars endorsing them, and, you see like in the stadiums, they're advertising and things like that. So now it's a lot more accepting. But I think that's one of the reasons. A lot of times, you get interested in the industry if you use their product,
Yeah.
a little bit. So like, there is obviously you cannot be using a product if you're a minor. So, there's a certain restriction there. You use a toothbrush or toothpaste when you are a kid, but you don't use a gaming app until you are 21, for example, or at least 15, 16, right? So I think a little bit of that. But there is a big domain knowledge kind of requirement to enter this industry. I didn't have that before, so I was given a chance. The market was such that the demand supply was not as bad as maybe it's nowadays in terms of hiring new people. So they gave me a chance, even though I didn't have an experience in that, but I had the technical kind of knowledge of how to test a product, and that's how they hired me. I'm lucky enough to be it. I mean, I like it. I'm a general sports fan in general. So before that in healthcare industry, obviously, if I make a mistake, the worst thing that can happen is somebody can die. But here, the worst thing that can happen is somebody might use $1 million. That's bad, but that's the worst that can happen. So in general, like the kind of environment is a little bit lighter in that sense. Like it's not very stressful. They're stressful in terms of there are peak traffic events which you have to manage for sure. Like the Super Bowl obviously is one of the biggest days in the calendar, but it's still fun in that sense. So that's like the positive side of it. But I think your question is about domain knowledge. But yeah, there is a heavy domain knowledge thing that you need. I think if somebody's a user of the product, it might be very easy for them to enter because they understand the basics of it. Whenever I used to kind of onboard somebody, I used to spend about 2-3 hours at least, or maybe even 2-3 weeks, depending on how close I was to that position, kind of explaining the domain knowledge, especially once I moved into product, because I want them to be kind of working so that it helps me in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm the product manager. They are kind of on my team. If they're in engineering or something like that, they are kind of they have to understand what I'm saying or what they need to deliver, what my requirements mean. And so I used to always spend some time doing some onboarding of how the tool works today, so that I can say if this is a bug and we need to fix it, this is how it works today. If you understand that part, then obviously you'll be able to understand what change we are making.
So I'm a big sports fan too, so I'd love to ask you a few questions about that. Before that, though, I have a quick question for you because of the domain knowledge expertise topic here. I think there's been a lot of people who come to me or other PM Hive leaders or like just product leaders where they have this question of, is there a way for me to leverage my domain expertise to get a product role, in which case I don't have the product experience, but I have domain expertise? And I think it's interesting because I think it depends on the organization.
Yes.
Some places, from my understanding, will prefer someone with the domain expertise instead of the product background. I've seen that happen a lot, actually. And then there's some other places where I used to have a mentor, and he told me that I don't really hire too much for domain expertise. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to have if you worked, like he was at Wealthsimple at the time. And he was like, yeah, if you had experience like Questrade or like a bank or something like that, fintech experience, it'd be cool, be fun. But I care more about your fundamental product knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like, so there's both sides of the spectrum. Where do you fall in the side of the spectrum when you're looking to hire?
I think you have to have at least one which is strong, and I can teach you the other. That's personal preference. There are some companies that only hire people who already have the knowledge. These days, obviously, working remote has become a big thing. And so, if somebody, especially when I onboarded or when I was onboarding people, we were usually in person. This is pre-COVID days, right? So it was a lot more easy to kind of develop a relationship, even, go into that onboarding mode while we are having some other conversation. These days with the remote work, there's a lot of, like, every meeting is agenda driven. Like at every meeting, you're talking about something specific.
Yeah.
You don't have maybe the luxury of, let's talk about this other thing because you missed that thing while we were having this conversation, to go into that like learning moment type thing. That's at least been my experience on being fully remote for the last few years. And so I think there it might be a little bit more difficult to teach And I think there it's both
That's
the
true.
product expertise as well as domain knowledge.
That's
That's
true.
why a lot of companies are looking for people who are ready-made. You can do the 100% of the job today rather than 70% of the job and I can teach you 30% so that you will stay for a few years in this company. If you already know 100% today, then you'll probably leave in a year because there's nothing more for you to grow.
That's fair. Like part of the reason why I ask you this question is because it derives from my own curiosity and almost concern about it, because I'm deep into my product career as well, but I don't have a specialization yet. And I'm wondering to myself, like, when do I see a threshold where I should start focusing on a specialization or a domain topic throughout the latter half of my career rather than just learning product fundamentals, right? Because I feel like I'm at this point where I have the fundamentals almost locked down, but do I want to keep growing that part, or do I want to like specialize in a particular career topic or domain expertise, right, in order to fully grow my career more? So anyways, kind of wanted to vent there because I'm like, wow, this feels like I'm in a cross paths right now.
The one other thing I want to add is like in general, you have to like having, you have to like working for that company and with those people as well, right?
That's true.
So domain and job satisfaction comes from that other thing as well. So like I really appreciate, I've worked for 3 companies in the last 13 years and, really good people, having fun while working as well, celebrating the successes, rallying together when there is a need for doing that. If all of that is there and the job satisfaction is there, then you start liking the domain anyway. You gain experience in the domain as well, right? So I guess to answer your question, you'll find it when you have it type thing. You don't have to go searching for it. Yeah.
You're bringing too many fun topics up to the point where I don't think I'll ever get to the sports questions I want to ask you, because I have a different question now. I've actually been told, I have a friend named Divik who started a YC funded startup. Super interested to learn more about what he's working on back down in SF. But he actually wrote an article that's similar to what you're describing on Medium, where he talks about, well, passion is sometimes developed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a very unsexy business idea or a product space for you to work in or look at from the outside looking in, right? But then when you jump in and the people are fun to work with, the industry is interesting, it's a fun problem to solve for, or it's an interesting problem to solve for, right? And there's money to be made to be successful. Well, then passion just starts developing, even if you didn't have passion for it initially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing I wanted to point out is, so I lived in the US and the immigration system in the US is slightly dicey now, a little bit challenging,
I bet.
right? And so I had to leave the US when my visa expired or whatever, and I came to Canada. And then now I'm a Canadian citizen. I don't have that restriction that I have to stay with a particular company for a long time. But I choose to stay because I have those other things, right? So you get reach that point where what job satisfaction means is different. Like I was mentioning slightly earlier about, I always wanted to work for Google and Microsoft because that's all I knew of, right? But then I started working. So when I was in the healthcare domain, I was actually working in a hospital sitting next to a nurse, and we were automating the electronic medical record system. And I realized this is software. This is also software. I don't have to work for a Microsoft or Google, right? And so that became the domain that I started liking. So like you mentioned, for sure, passion can be developed. It's because you're not even exposed to it, you don't even think about it. Your horizon is not wide enough, but when you're thrown into it and you start enjoying it, that becomes your passion. It doesn't have to be something that you have a preconceived passion and then you search for the role in that.
100%. So I want to not go off the rails too much, but quickly, like a 30-second story about myself is that I started my career at Microsoft, and I joined a Bing search platform team that was very engineering heavy, and a lot of domain and technical expertise was needed. So of course, I think for the first 4 or 5 months, I probably wasn't adding too much value. I was just trying to soak everything in as a new graduate PM person. That being said, though, I think because of the very kind of weird fit that I was in, I didn't feel like it was fulfilling, even though I thought that I've just landed my dream job. I thought my career aspirations from a passion standpoint was met, and I could just take that and skyrocket to passion moon. Eventually, after 1.5 years to 2 years, I was starting to almost kind of deplete myself in energy because I felt like I was putting energy into a space that didn't feel fulfilling. not Microsoft's problem. It was more so just like a team fit. And I realized, I started realizing, I think from my perspective, is passion is developed when you're finding both sides of the coin fun to work with. Like not just the domain expertise. Like I loved working on Bing search. What I didn't like was just like the technical expertise and the weird fit that I put myself in. And I was doing a lot of things I felt like wasn't to the advantage of where I wanted to be in my career. And so like, long story short, like left, joined a different team at a different company, loved my work, and I felt the passion just starting to brew. Even though I didn't really, like the space that second company was in, I was like, well, it's a nice place. I don't think I'm passionate about it, but I like the work. Suddenly the passion just starts growing as you join the team and doing the mundane things. You know what I mean?
You start enjoying your work, and that becomes, I mean, it's not just a 9 to 5 job, right? You think about it, even if your laptop's not open, you're thinking about it. What problems I'm trying to solve? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do next week? So
I have a second question. If we flip the script a little bit to the other side, where there's a lot of people on the outside looking in, really passionate about gaming and sports. And we all know we all have friends and family who are passionate as heck about sports and gaming. They want to get into the space because it feels like a really cool industry to be in, right? They join, they lose their passion. Well, not all of them, obviously. I'm not trying to make a label for myself and just say that all of them are, but some of them are. What do you feel like might be the thing that's causing them to lose that passion? Maybe it's because like they realize that the hard work still exists.
Exactly. Hard work still exists. And sometimes it is actually fun because it's not work, right?
Yeah, that's true.
The reason, because you're kind of escaping from work or whatever. This is my time to have fun. That's when I enjoy the sports. But if I'm doing the same thing at work as well, then I might not enjoy it as much because now it feels like work.
100%. I always have like a feeling. I had a mentor who told me like, because back then, like almost 10 years ago, I was like, obviously I was like considering what I was going to do for my full-time job. And then one of these mentors I met told me that like, hey, listen, I feel like you keep romanticizing the gaming space a little bit. You don't consider like there's crunch time.
Yeah.
You don't consider that there's surges, like a Super Bowl event, like you mentioned before. You don't consider the fact that it can sometimes get toxic or political depending on where you join. You don't consider the fact that the daily operational work that you do is just like any other place, and you might actually lose that passion. And he was telling me at the time, he was like, I was very passionate about this video game that I loved. And then when I joined the team to build this video game, I did not want to touch this video game ever for the rest of my life after.
Yeah, like I don't use my app because I'm always on the test environment all the time in the app. I've rarely used it in the production environment as a user of the product because I'm using it for my work all the time.
So that's why I have like a soft rule for myself in that like if there's certain passions I enjoy, whether it's like playing a certain game, going on a certain app, doing a certain activity, and it's become a hobby of mine, right? If I really wanted to make a career out of it, I absolutely have to love the hard part of that work.
Absolutely.
If I don't love the hard part of the work, the hobby is going to get ruined. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Switch the topics a little bit. Wanted to actually get into the sports part now. What sports do you follow?
When I'm in the US, a lot more because, there was a local football team and a local basketball team and a local baseball team. In Canada, I'm into hockey a little bit, more country versus country. But as a child growing up in India, cricket is my passion. I follow cricket as a sport in all its forms.
I wanted to quickly ask you, because I share that same passion. When I lived in the US, I loved the Seattle Seahawks. I still follow them a little bit. Like, I'm super happy they won the Super Bowl recently. Here, I'm a big Calgary Flames fan because I grew up in Calgary watching hockey there. And I love AC Milan over in Europe in terms of like European football. All the different technologies I see in every different industry, or sorry, not every industry, but just rather like the sport itself, there's different aspects of those technologies creeping in. There's sponsorships, like, oh, it's sponsored by AWS, sponsored by Amazon, and all that sort of stuff. There's technology, like, what's funny is like when I'm watching a hockey game on TV, the ads that you see around the rink side, they're actually like TV cutouts. Like they're ads now. And then because when you go to the actual physical game, there's like the static ads.
That's right. Yeah.
But then when you watch it on TV, it's completely different.
That's right.
And you see cutouts. And sometimes you can kind of see like the green screen's not working with the players because like you see a little bit of the green screen overlapping with the players' bodies.
Yes.
It's kind of insane, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how the commerce is made. Like they make money from that, right? The TV audience for some sports is much bigger than the people who are paying ticket to go watch the game in person.
Do you feel like there's going to continuously be in like an evolution where technology will continue creeping into, sports and games? Like I think the biggest one that I have a prediction of is definitely like more and more stronger sports analytics.
Yeah.
Sports analytics is already out there. Like I feel like there's a lot like basketball stats, baseball stats, cricket stats, and analytics and scenario planning is still already a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, matchups, we call like matchups, in a sport like cricket.
Probability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, so, obviously the human intuition or like, the leader who's setting the game plan is going to use their intuition to, beat the other team's tactics for sure. But the analytics is definitely going to help them, maybe with the plan B or plan C if plan A doesn't work.
One final question I have on this topic, and it's kind of interesting to me because I've done sports betting before. Mm-hmm. I'll just admit that right up. It's fun. But it's only fun for me if I know the sport really well.
Yeah.
So like one example can be, let's say for example, it's hockey, right? With hockey, if I know this team really well and their players and the other team really well, who's playing at home, so they have home court advantage or home ice advantage, who the referees are going to be that day. As well as like not just that, but actually the situation in the season. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be playing with higher pressure in their backs, right? Yeah. Because their playoff lives are on the line or something like that, right? Yeah. And which team is already just waiting for the draft lottery to happen. Yeah. Like all that, you need to actually like be very deep in the weeds of the season of all the players, who's injured, who's not, in order to fully make a strong intuition bet, right? But then I have this intuition for myself. And I sometimes feel like when I look at the probabilities between the two teams on a given sports bet website, or like just even when, how like on Google, if you search up a sports matchup, they give the probabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is that calculated? Because sometimes I swear to God, I don't even see like what I think about between these two teams. I don't think that's factored in sometimes.
There's lots of mathematical models. I myself might not even understand that very well, but like we are like, I kind of almost have to trust those numbers. My job is to kind of, help people identify what they should bet on or what they should make a purchase on. And that's kind of my focus, and what the price is somebody else's focus. So that PM who's working on the pricing, obviously he knows how that works. I'm more on the order of things that you see on the site or the app. And so, whoever's an expert in that, they know about it. One thing I wanted to mention, what you said is like, you are one persona, right? Like, so you are,
that's true.
You are Aaron in my in my persona, but there's another
user too.
Exactly. Yeah. So you are my user, but that's the Aaron persona. There's also the Steve persona, he can't watch a game without having something riding on it. So he's doing it just for fun, to make it interesting. I feel like this player, just today, I don't look at the analytics for the rest of the season. Just today, I'm watching this game. And while I'm watching this game, if I have something riding on it, then I'll have more fun watching the game.
That's true. True.
So that's a persona as well. So like, you that's your style. There are other people who have other styles, and we design for
different styles, right? I never knew that actually. That's actually a nice kind of learning touch for me.
Yeah,
because I see it from a lens of I have fun when there's I know the context of this game.
Because you are enjoying the analytics part as well.
I'm enjoying the analytics part, and I also have context to the game. Yeah. Whose lives are on the line more? Yeah. And all that stuff. Whose players are injured? Who's feeling like who's going to turn up for the game the most?
Yeah. And then I think you are doing it to a certain extent because you want to win as well, right?
Oh, 100%.
Whereas some of the other people, they might just be like, let's do it. Sometimes people just take the contrarian option as well. It's like, oh, you think this is going to happen? I'll take the other side of this bet, and I'll bet on this thing to happen. Even though,
right.
Just to make it fun.
Make it fun, and I think the reward is higher too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, I know we derailed a little bit into that topic, but I love that topic. My only last question for you, because we are coming up on time. Last question is more so: do you have any sort of advice or suggestions for anyone who is trying to get into product first and foremost, from someone from your type of background, engineering QA based background, and also like land in a space where they are passionate about the work in the industry that they're in, just like you are.
I think one of the things is to focus on the outcomes. I know when I was an engineer and also talk to other people who are in engineering type roles, they are more obviously worried about or thinking more about how to code. Obviously, all of those things are becoming easier now. But you are a developer, so you focus on developing. You are a tester, so you focus on testing. This is the requirement and this is the expected result, and therefore I click this button and this did not happen, so I have to create a bug. That is your role, but the goal still has to be the outcome that you're trying to deliver, right? So the more you start thinking about outcomes, that's the product role, right? Like, what experience are you trying to give to the user? What pain points you're trying to remove, or what delight you're going to try to give to the customer. The more you start thinking about those while you are in your engineering and QA and other roles, other functions, the more you'll get closer to product and be able to do the product role well. And then obviously some theory of, what makes a good product manager and how you can do your job better. That helps as well. But the first thing is caring about the customer, and the entire goal is you're trying to solve the customer's problem, no matter what your role you're playing in the engineering organization. And then when you're in C-suite, you're trying to make money for the business as well. But yeah, like what outcome you're going to try to achieve and why you're doing something, what's the end goal. That thinking about that even while you're doing your individual role of writing code.
Yeah, I think I actually never, like, whenever people ask me these questions, I'm like, well, there's your typical textbook answers, right? Outcome-based mindsets is actually a good way to describe it, because I think if you care about the outcome, or you're not just solving for the customer's problem, you're also helping the business make money, and you're landing for product success. And then I think, to your point, it does make you closer or adjacent to that product role, right? Because how else are you, like, that's also the best way for you as a PM or an aspiring PM to measure success for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, appreciate the time today. Super thoughtful answers today. And I know there's a lot that we want to leave on the table for our conversation next time around too. So would love to have you back. But until next time, I appreciate your time today, Swapnil.
Thank you very much. I had a great time.